Hello everybody and welcome to my mess, which is my basement. You can see I have been changing my setup a little bit. It was different in the last video, it's different now. It'll probably be different again in the next one. I'm also in an old chair that's a bit squeaky, so I do apologize if that shows up, but I'll try not to lean back or something. I have a new one on the way, but for now I'm stuck in a squeaky chair. But you're not here because you're interested in my other setups. You are here to learn about how to do something fun with CSS because that's what this channel is all about. So let's take a look at what we're going to be building in this project. It's a lot of fun. It's part of the popdog project that I have done so far. We've done a lot of the grunt work already. Now we're adding in these final little touches that really make the whole thing come together and be something a little bit special because it's such a fun thing to be building. So we're going to be doing this pulsing animation all just with CSS and a couple of pseudo elements. So we're going to look at how we can do it standalone, and then I'll integrate it into the project for those who are following along with the whole thing. Let's jump in and see how we can do it. Okay, so here is the popdog site. You can see here they have the YouTube thing where it is pulsing away right now. So that's what we're going to want to recreate. Where we are right now, or what we've got up so far is something like this. I am zoomed in a little bit just to make everything bigger. So we're going to try and play with that. But what I've actually done is I've pulled out this element with the name and the icon. I've made the icon really big just because it's going to make it a lot easier to follow along and see exactly what's happening. And then we'll shrink it all down and make it fit in the actual project. So here is, I've made like a separate CSS file for this and a separate HTML that's just focusing on that pulse thing that we're doing. So if we looked originally, we have is just this 3 times. So we have streamers inside there. We have a individual streamer who has the icon, a paragraph, and the number. So the icon is the symbol or the picture here. Then we have gamer1, which is the name and the number. I'm not worried about those. In this one, we're just focused here on this icon div. And I'm just going to do it for one of them because it's going to keep the screen a little less cluttered, and then we'll integrate it into that other one, as I said, a little bit later on. Just move that down. There we go. And the only reason that I have this icon div here is, and I'm not doing it directly on the image, is because I need pseudo elements. And you can't place a pseudo element directly on an image. Images are replaced elements. It's just not going to work. So sadly, we can't do it there. I wish we could put pseudo elements on images, but it's a no-go, so we do need to wrap it in a div. So let's come over to here, and you can see I've set things up a little bit, but I haven't done very much. One thing I did though is on my streamer's image in the original one I had, this was 2M and 2M for the smaller image, but I did it directly on the image itself, and I think it would have been better to actually have that on the icon itself instead of on the image. So I'm going to move that up onto my icon. And if I save, you can see things are more or less the same. It did shift around a little bit, and let's find out why. It's just that I used an image that was a bit smaller. There we go. We'll go with one that actually takes up the full room because this image was a bit bigger than my other ones. So there we go. The image is actually taking up the full amount of space and is that. If we needed to, you could put in like the width and the height on the image to force it to be, but it's going to be smaller anyway. And because I do have images with a max width of 100%, if I switch the width here and the height to 1M each, the whole thing is going to shrink down. So there's no issue. In general, your image is probably the right size or smaller anyway, and you don't want images to grow because then they lose quality. So there we go. We have my image that's going to be in there. And now when I hover on top, we want things to happen. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here I'm just trying to think. Even this, I had that as streamer's image. I think it would make more sense if it was my icon image. It's just a little... Actually, I'm gonna leave it as streamers. I remembered it's because I had streamers in 2 places, so that's sort of being used somewhere else. So we'll just bring that right here. And then we have my icon, and we're gonna want a before, and we're gonna want my icon after for my 2 pseudo elements, because they will share a lot of properties. So if you know about pseudo elements, you do need to have a empty content, or we could have content in there. We are actually going to use some content on that at one point for one of them. I'm also going to do a position of absolute. You got to spell position, right? Position absolute. And the reason I'm going, and because I have position absolute there, I'm going to want to do a position relative on my icon. So this stays, my before and after stay within that. And then we can just come in here and say the height is, or not height, we can just do a top, or yeah, we could even do height 100% width 100%, that should work. And let's see if that is working. We'll give them a background color for now. Background is blue. They're going next to each other, so actually, let's just do top 0, bottom 0, right 0, left 0. There we go, and now they're overlapping one another. So for now, actually, we're going to have it on all the time because it's going to be a lot easier to see what we're doing, and then we'll add the hover that's going to come into it in a little bit after that. But let's set everything up so it's actually working first. So let's take my icon before, and this is going to be the lighter red one. So let's just give that a background. And my background for this is I'm just going to do an F00 for pure red. And what I'd forgot is I do want to do a border radius of 50%, just so we get a circle. And what do we want? So that actually is more or less what we need, to be honest, but we need the little play icon to be inside of there. So to be able to put that play icon in there, we're going to go back to pseudo-elements. We're going to go to using Font Awesome. And if you missed the last video, I looked at how we can set up Font Awesome icons as pseudo-elements. So I'm not going to deep dive it right now. I just have the icon code off screen here. So we can do the backsplash and put that in. And when we save that, we need a semicolon. And we have a little thing showing up there. So a few more lines of code here we're going to need. The font family is going to be, it's Font Awesome 5 free. That should at least do a little bit, and I'm pretty sure I've linked to Font Awesome. And let's just change here the font weight to 900. There we go, perfect. So you can see that the play icon has come in. The next thing I'm gonna do is a display of flex on this, and the reason I want to do that is so I can do, or even we could save a line, I guess. We could do a display grid and do a place items center, which should place that right there in the middle. For now, the font size is going to have to be adjusted. I'm just going to do like 2M. We'll do that for now. But once we make the icon smaller, we'll have to make the font size smaller on that. And I'm just going to bring that to stay with all my font properties. Awesome. So that's perfect. Now the next thing we need is my icon after. And on my icon after, this is what's going to give us that pulsing animation. So let's give this one, I'm trying to just think for a second. I'm going to give it a background of light blue, just so we can see that it's different, so you can see that it's coming there. Now the problem is it's in front and not behind. So I can come in here and give this a Z index of, I'm just going to give this a Z index of 1, and we'll give this one a Z index of 10, just so we know that one's in front of this one, more or less. So now the blue one is behind, and now we need it to pulse. So there's a few different ways we can do that, but I am going to, no, let's make our animation, then we'll change it so it's on hover. I was going to do the whole thing in one shot. So what I'm going to do for this is the keyframes. So we need a little animation. I'll call it pulse, because that's what's happening. And for my pulse, we want to start at 0%. We're going to have to do a few different things on here. We're just going to do a transform first. So transform, not transform box, just transform. We can do a scale. So it's going to start where, doesn't do anything at the beginning. And then at 100%, it can transform. And the scale can be, let's just try 1.5, probably way too big, but I want to make sure that it's actually working. And so if that is working, let's come and add that to here. So we can do an animation. Let's just write pulse, 500 milliseconds, probably way too slow, but hey, we can see it worked. Now the only problem is it did it once and then it stopped. So whoop, and then it's over. So we can come here and we can add in infinite. And now it should keep playing over and over again. So already we're making some progress. That's good. Now if we go back to popdog, actually what's interesting here on their site is it's almost like a heartbeat. I'm going to do this more as a pulse, I think. So the first thing I'm going to do, so we can see that's going kind of crazy. Let's slow it down, maybe 1,000 for 1 second. I think that's going to look a little bit nicer. I think this is also too big. Let's change that down to like a 3.5. So it is looking a little bit nicer. But I think the other thing I want to do is opacity, because if it's always solid, it looks kind of weird. So if I do an opacity, let's say we start at 0.75, and then by the end of it, opacity, do we get down to a 0? Let's go down to 0 and see what happens. Doesn't that look good? I think that already looks really good. I'm actually really happy with that. Maybe we could actually start this at like a 0.95, so it's a little bit smaller than the original. Just so it never really pokes out until it gets a little bit bigger. I don't know if that's really noticeable, but I think that looks pretty good. And of course, what we can do is just change the color of it. We can use the same, just pure red. Oh, not FF0, F00. And we get something like that, where it looks like it's pulsing. So now I don't want this to always happen. I only want it to happen when I'm hovering. So I can just do icon and just add hover here. So icon hover after means when I hover on top, it starts doing it. And when I take my mouse away, it stops. Pretty nice and simple right there. So we get that nice little pulsing, and then the pulsing goes away. And of course, if you play with the opacity, the speed of this, maybe it's still a little too fast. So like we could slow it down a little bit more even. I think it looks a little nicer even now. Now another thing that happens on the popdog one, when we hover anywhere here, so either like if I'm hovering anywhere close to the streamer, you can see it's actually going up. And I think it actually has a little pulse right away, but I'm just going to add it later. But you can see it goes up, and then if I hover on top, it gets bigger, changes color, and is pulsing. So we got a little bit of work to do. Okay, so that's my icon hover after. And you can see I'm writing regular CSS here. I was using Sass before where everything was nested. But we're going to stick with the regular CSS for this one. Let's go back to mine. So my icon, I think the first thing we're going to say is icon hover is going to transform, translate x, y. And this is where I always mess up if negative is up or down. Let's try negative 20%. I got it right, except I don't want it to be the icon actually. Because I'm hitting this jank here because I'm in between hover states. Like here it's hovering, here it's not, it goes crazy. But I want it to be whenever I hover over that individual streamer that the icon moves up. So that's easy enough to do. We do .streamer hover.icon. So the icon that's nested in the individual streamer. So here I only have the one streamer, but if we look at the original code, let me just give me 1 second, where we have the 3 of them here. So if I hover on this streamer, this icon will move. If I hover on the second streamer will move. You get the idea. So if we do that, I should be able to hover anywhere in this area and it jumps up. So that's good. So if it jumps up, then what I want is if I hover on the icon itself, we already have the pulse. But the other thing, we'll do it right here. This one's just my icon itself with the hover. And this one will have a transform of scale. And let's just try 1.1. I don't think it needs to change a lot in size, so it goes up. And then it's not working. Icon hover. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. That was silly of me. Are these fighting each other? These two transforms are currently fighting each other. And this one has higher specificity, because both of these are applying the a transform onto my icon. So actually, if we open up my DevTools here, we'll be able to see it better. Let's go take a look right on my icon. You can see the original one's being crossed off because this one's taking over. Even though this one is first, it's winning because it has higher specificity because we have 2 classes, whereas here we only have 1. So that's not going to work. So what I might actually have to do is, just to battle that, is .streamer icon hover, just be able to match it. So, whoa, that's way too big. Oh yeah, I was wondering, I was like, what? One point I was playing around there. So it goes up and then it will get bigger when I hover on top. Now the only problem is it sort of jumps down, which looks kind of weird. They're also really big. Like once we go down to the other sizes, the normal size, I'm gonna have to play with this. And we'll have to keep the translate on there as well, or it jumps down. That's part of the problem. There we go. This can go back up. So it goes there, and then when we hover, it gets bigger and it starts pulsing. So that looks okay. Now we need to add the transitions. Before we do that, I just want to change the color of the front one here. So that's my icon before. This is when I have Sass that I was using before. It makes it a little easier to know when you're in your hover state or not. But what we'll do is my icon hover before, the background on it will change to this color. Whoops. It's E000. 0? Does that end up zeros? There we go. It's just a little bit of a darker red. So you can see it's, maybe we could even go a little darker than that. If you're in VS Code and you hover on top of this, you get a color picker. So I can just actually, that's transparency though. I don't want to make it more transparent. That's going to break it. So let's just darken that a smidgen. There, I think that looks a bit more of what they had, but now it looks really ugly because it's really janky, and that's not nice. So I think what we'll do is, I want it on the icon. It's my transforms, but I also want that to change. I'm just curious, actually, on the original one, if you hover up and go down, it's always moving, because just here, like, it goes on, but when you go off it, anyway. So this is where it's happening, which is my icon itself. So I'm just trying to think, because I have that moves up. Yeah, okay, we'll just do it here. Transition, transform, ease in out, 250 milliseconds. There we go. So it looks a little nicer. I think it's actually a little slow. And I'm going to change that a little bit. Let's just go look at the popdog one. You know what, the hover one, like here is fine, but when I go here, it's really way too slow. And even the moving up is a little, I'm gonna do like a 150, just to make that go a little up and down a little quicker. I think that's fine. It's gonna be so small too, like this movement is a lot right now. When I shrink everything down, everything's gonna get smaller, so we're okay. So there, it goes there, there, it goes there. And then it comes like that and goes down. And even, do they have a transition on the color? There's probably a short transition, but I find, I don't even know if I need to. Why not? Let's do it. So here it's the background color. So that's my before. So we could do a transition of background color. And we'll do 100 milliseconds linear. Just so it's a little smoother when the color changes, instead of just being this instant change. It'll be a little bit smoother on there. So there we go. That is, I think, pretty good. Okay, so the last thing we need to do before we try and get this to actually work on the real site is, I just want to make it so we don't see this icon all the time too, right? And we're gonna have to do, for that, we'll have to do an opacity of 0, so it's like that. But then when we, look at that, that's kind of cool. So then when it's opacity 0, and then my before on hover, we'll get in, no, not here, icon, before, after, the background color changes when I hover on the icon itself, but I need it to be here. It's kind of messy, but I'm going to do it here anyway. Streamer dot, or let's do it here. Streamer, hover, icon, before, opacity of 1. So there we go. It appears, and then when we hover, we get that. So that looks pretty good. I don't like the organization here too much, but at least it's working. And the one thing I'm going to change is I have a transition of my background color. We're also going to do an opacity on here too. So let's just put this on multiple lines. So we're transitioning the background color. We're also going to transition the opacity over, say, 200 milliseconds linear. That's my prettier. That's just putting it all on one line, but then, ooh, I don't like that at all. That's terrible. Did they not do any transition? I think there is one there that's really fast. Let's just try like 75 milliseconds maybe and see what that looks like. That looks better. There we go. You don't get that weird face meld into the red. So it's not much of a transition, but it's I think enough just to make it a little bit less harsh, and then we get something like that. So now we get the fun part of bringing this into my project. So it's in my CSS file that's right here. Now I'm not going to organize this now just for brevity's sake. If somebody wants to organize this a little bit better after the fact and bring in a pull request on the GitHub repo, I will not be against that at all. You know, I wanted just to focus on getting everything done and maybe not making it perfect. So let's go and grab everything from here, starting from here and all the way down, copy all that. Now I might have to play with things in here a little bit, but we're just going to paste that in. Let's hit save and go and take a look. So those are better, except everything's broken. Now we have the font size that needs to be fixed. Where was my font size? The font size here is going to be pretty small. Let's try 0.5 and see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. Maybe we could do a little bigger, 6.5 maybe. And you notice that they're not in the center anymore. I think I broke something along the way there. We can fix that though. Perfect. Oh, I know why. It's because I did a display grid here. No, that shouldn't break it. My icons, I'm wondering actually what I did that broke that, but that's okay, we can fix it. What if I did icon, display, inline block even? There we go. I was gonna think inline flex, but I don't think I need flex on there. Perfect, okay. It's just because the icon itself is display block, and I'd given it a width, which I didn't have on it before, so it was just shoving all the way to the left. So by giving it the inline block, it's following the text align center now. Yeah, it was originally, I thought maybe an inline flex would be required there, but that seems to be working really well, actually. Cool, I broke my game name somehow. Oh, because I have all this, I'm gonna put this as a dot streamer icon. Anyway, I'm gonna fix that. I broke something along the way there. I know what it is, and I'm not gonna do that for now because it goes out of the scope of this tutorial. But even just by shrinking everything down there, you saw I made it like the 0.2. I changed it from 2M to 10M, like, and then had to change my font size. But I think despite that, oh, I have something else broken here too. So yeah, that's I know what that's causing. Anyway, I'll do that after. But I think with that being the only thing, except yeah, I want that to go up and then it starts pulsing. I'm gonna change my sizing here a little bit. I think I'm going to change the translate here to 10, and we'll make this like a 1.2. Just so when it goes up, it doesn't go up as much. So it's still rising. Maybe we can keep that maybe a 15. So when I come here, you can see the icons move up a little bit, but not as much. And then if I go on top, it grows and it starts pulsing. And my pulsing, I'm going to bring my opacity up here a little bit. And maybe bring the scale up a little bit. Just now that it's smaller and I'm looking at it, I think that looks a little better. Maybe that's a little too big now. This could do a 0.4 maybe. Maybe that could be a little lower, but you know what, that looks pretty good. And then like that, I'm really happy with that. So there we have it. There it is. I think it's looking pretty good. Off camera, I am going to fix that up a little bit more. I hope my squeaky chair didn't come in at all during that. I think I was pretty steady and trying not to lean on the back. But hopefully you don't hear any squeaks during that video. But yeah, I'm really happy with how that did turn out. I think it looks really good. I think overall, we're getting really close. The last thing we need to do is an SVG clip path animation thing, which should be really fun. And I'm going to be tackling that one next week. So if you enjoyed this video and you haven't yet subscribed, you want to see how I'm going to do that, do please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that one. A huge thank you to my patrons for their generous support every single month. You guys are absolutely amazing. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.